Welcome to the John and Heidi Show podcast.
John and Heidi.
Here's John and Heidi.
Thank you so much for listening to the John and Heidi Show on a Monday. Hey, baby, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very excited for another fabulous week. We've got a guest coming up later in the program, Andy Gause, going to talk about tariffs. A lot of people don't know what tariffs are. It's actually a pretty cool concept. Up until like 100 years ago, that's how our country survived. It was all on tariffs. They've kind of gone away. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say about tariffs.
Sounds like a lovely chocolate.
Oh, that does sound.
Nestle tariffs.
Hey, listen to this. I got some fun facts. These are things that I haven't had a chance to get to the last few days, like last week, so I saved them up. A mosquito flaps its wings 600 times a second. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Fidel Castro was once a star baseball player for the University of Havana. That was in the 1940s. The United States, on average, 50% of a city's land is paved. That includes parking lots, driveways, and roads. So in most cities in the United States, 50% of the town is pavement.
Yeah, I could see that.
At one time, Thomas Edison obtained an average of one patent every 5 days for his new inventions. That was for about 4 years. One a day for 5 years. Or 4 years, rather. And unlike most cats, tigers love the water and can easily swim 3 or 4 miles. How crazy is that? So if you ever see a tiger swimming by, you know that he didn't fall in. He likes swimming. Coming up, we've got some special things happening today. We'll tell you all about that in a bit.
John and Heidi.
Today is a special day, Heidi. Do you know what today is?
What is today,
I
John?
should never ask. It's Monday, March the 14th. Today is International Ask a Question Day. I love today. That's good. I love to ask questions. Also, International Day of Action for Rivers. It is Moth-er Day today, M-O-T-H-E-R Day. I don't know what that means. Napping Day today, Potato Chip Day today, and there's one other thing, and there's people out there that know it. Shout it out, people. You know what it is. 3/14. It's Pi Day. P-I. And if you know pi, like the full thing, rather than just 3.14, you know the entire string of numbers, you
need to get a
smarter than
life.
most people. No. What? No. You were smarter than most people. I've had several people that know that. They're like, oh, pi, 3.147, and they just rattle on this big, long chain of things.
As if anybody would call them on. No. You missed the 7.
Oh, I think you
like,
heard
I mean,
the
you could
7
just.
and the
I could
9.
say that. I could say that and just rattle off a ton of numbers, and
You
people would
should.
be so impressed.
Oh,
and
Heidi, what is
it's
pi?
Just nonsense.
What is it? Tell me.
3.147826542178654244.
8675309. You missed that part.
8675309.
All right, coming up, don't get smart with me, little girl. We got a fun story on the way.
John and Heidi.
This portion of the John and Heidi Show is brought to you by Knowles Systems. If you have funds earning less than 6%, listen to this. Commercial mortgage bridge loans pay 6% to 8%. That might be just what you need. You're placed in first position on loans secured by high-quality commercial real estate like hotels, apartments, and office buildings. Your principal never fluctuates in value. You receive 6% per year paid monthly, and your principal is returned in full at the end of each cycle. You never pay commissions, management fees, or asset charges, and you can make these loans inside or outside of an IRA. I'll give you a toll-free number to call, 888-547-8007. Start earning 6% now. Call 888-547-8007.
John and Heidi.
You know it's true because you heard it on the radio. Don't get smart with me, little girl. Forget the TV show. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? The real question is whether or not you're smarter than a 3-year-old. A Singapore girl is believed to be the youngest person admitted to Mensa, the International Society for People with High IQs. I know what story's coming up. Celestine Grace Kai became a Mensa member when she was 3 and 10 months old, so just under the age of 4, which makes her the youngest person admitted to the society. Normally, Mensa does not consider anybody under the age of 15 for membership. The only requirement to be in Mensa is to have an IQ that ranks among the top 2% of the world. Celestine's IQ was off the scale, so she's been given an IQ of 158 plus. She was able to solve every test and reconstruct and reproduce figures and puzzles years ahead of her time at age 3 and 10 months.
That's insane.
So what story do you want to tell right now? We had another story about a young person who was entering Mensa. I think they were maybe 12 or something. It was under the age of 15.
Yeah.
So I went online
My
to
husband's
see.
like, I wonder if there's an IQ test. I wonder how smart I am.
Well,
So
I
he
took-
goes on, he takes his IQ test,
And
and he
I-
got a number.
I got all of the questions
But he
right.
didn't know,
So
how
that's
do
one-
I know if I'm... So he types into Google, how do you know if you're a genius? And Google says, did you mean genius? He misspelled it. I was like, that's how you know. You can quit looking now.
Yeah, I misspelled genius.
That was so funny.
Apparently, I ain't one. I don't know.
I was like, get back to work, monkey boy. You're done now.
No genius for you. All I know is you know it's true because you heard it on the radio.
John and Heidi.
The John and Heidi Show is brought to you in part by the Keystone Treatment Center.
This is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. We share silly stories here on the program, but addiction is no joke. If you or someone you know suffers with an addiction to drugs or alcohol, make today the day you seek help.
Call toll-free 844-204-1055.
That's a toll-free number. Again,
844-204-1055.
and this is your brain on drugs. Police say a Delaware man tried to hide his pot stash inside of some diapers. According to police in Newcastle County, Daisheen Randell was smoking weed when probation officers stopped by his house for a little checkup. Police report finding 45 grams of marijuana in one diaper and 34 grams inside another. There were 2 babies in the house. Randell now faces a number of charges, including possession with the intent to deliver. And it says police say 2 other men in the house, including his brother, face the same charges. So he was hiding. I'm not going to say that it's a good idea, because it's never a good idea to have
I
drugs.
would assume child endangerment would be in there somewhere, wouldn't there?
I don't think the
Because if
kids
they're
were
smoking it in the house and the children are breathing that in, I
I
wouldn't.
don't
I don't know.
think the kids were wearing the diapers at the
Well,
time,
of course.
but I don't know.
I would hope not.
I don't know. I wasn't there, so I just don't know. All I know is that's what happens when your brain is on drugs.
John and Heidi.
Talk about a strange weapon. We're going to head to Waukesha, Wisconsin. First of all, because I like saying Waukesha, Wisconsin. That's fun. But also because that's where 47-year-old Leisha K. Reed has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. You know why?
Why?
She was attacking couples that she didn't know with a pretty unusual weapon. A metal pooper scooper. By her own admission, Leisha was high on crack at the time.
Oh my goodness! What is wrong with people?
I don't know. She showed up at the door of John and Linda Dormer's home. They don't even know her. She said somebody was going to kill her. And then she threatened to kill them. She began swinging her metal pooper scooper and a pair of scissors at them.
Oh, wow.
Her defense attorney, poor guy, tried to convince the judge she wasn't really trying to hurt anybody, but he didn't really buy that. So she gets to go to prison for 2 years.
Good.
So what you in for? Tried to kill some people with a pooper scooper. If nothing else, she at least has the best story in prison. Coming up, we've got some more fun stuff to share. That's on the way on the John and Heidi Show.
The Scoop of the Day is brought to you by Wells Blue Bunny. If you want delicious ice cream, be sure to look for the Blue Bunny. Sure to have your favorite flavors. Learn more at bluebunny.com.
Now your scoop of the day. You know, selfies are out of control when even rats are taking selfies. Did you see this online?
No.
A rat in Brooklyn stepped on a camera and took a selfie while a man was sleeping. The man was sleeping and it was his phone. A rat climbed over him and stepped on his camera and took a
Gross.
selfie.
Could you
Ugh.
imagine living somewhere where there's just rats
No.
climbing all over you?
Doesn't sound fun to me. A new poll finds that 80% of those asked are ready for a woman president. And they asked if there was a particular woman, they didn't really have a good name. So I'm just kidding. That part's not on there.
Hold on. Let's
Yes.
go back to this rat thing.
Yeah.
If you've got...
Wait
if
a
you're-
minute.
if
That's
you're-
what you're going to go on? Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool.
If your living conditions are so terrible, if you can't afford to live somewhere nicer than a place that is completely infested with rats, that they're climbing
It's in
all
Brooklyn.
over you,
Yeah, in Brooklyn.
perhaps one of your monthly expenses should not be a smartphone. I'm just saying. I mean, get your priorities in order and pay for the stuff that matters.
There you go. skipping over
Maybe
that other story.
buy some rat traps and get rid of the phone, and then buy a phone once you've taken care of that rat problem.
I think there's an app for that. Hey, on March 6th, the UK's online periodical, The Sunday Times, published an article which stated that the country's Department of Education will no longer allow the use of the exclamation mark in answers to questions on the grammar exams given to 7-year-old students. The reason for the ban is the overuse of the exclamation mark in social media. The Department of Education breaks it down like this. If the sentence begins with the words what or how, the ending in an exclamation mark is then okay. But if it's not what or how, there should not be an exclamation mark. Got it, Heidi? And
Sure.
there should never be 7 exclamation marks. We used to have a guy that we worked with that drove him nuts. I would always put 2 or 3 because he told me it was a pet peeve of his.
I overuse the exclamation
I know
mark.
you do. I've noticed on some of my emails, I have an exclamation mark at the end of every sentence, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go through and put some periods on there. Maybe even a question mark and a semicolon. I don't know where you use those things. All right. Indiana State University researchers suggest that you should get your kids in shape by adding weights to their toys. What's that? It's my baby rattle. Why does it have a giant barbell taped to it?
Why does that Lego house look so funny?
Just put some weights
Got
on
a
there.
weight on every Lego.
Filled them all with cement. Buildings of all kinds, homes, offices, cafes, schools are all being constructed out of recycled shipping containers. I've always thought this was cool. According to David Cross, co-founder of SG Blocks, it's a company specializing in container construction, the energy used to construct a container home is 95% less than the energy used to melt or discard the container. Yet they're not just for the environmentally conscious. Container homes are typically cheaper and faster to build than traditionally constructed homes. Because they're made from steel, they're also extremely durable. I was telling my beautiful wife, Heidi, over here, that we should build a home out of shipping containers, and she said, if you want to live in a dumpster, you're doing that on your own. I think they're really cool. Social networks like Twitter may blunt people's sense of reality, claims a brain scientist. New evidence shows a digital explosion of information from networking sites could have long-term damaging effects on the emotional development of young people's brains. The danger is that the heavy Twitter and Facebook users could become indifferent to the emotions of people. What do you think of that? Kind of crazy. Are you indifferent to that?
No.
Doesn't surprise me. Psychology researcher, I tried to jam those together, Felix Warneken, discovered that babies develop altruism at the age of 18 months.
What is altruism?
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask. He did household tasks in front of 24 different toddlers. Every time he knocked over a book or dropped a clothespin, the toddler would quickly crawl over and pick up the object and hand it back to him. He never asked for help or said thank you because he didn't want to influence their behavior. But he found that babies only helped when he appeared to accidentally drop something and needed help, not when it looked like he did it on purpose. So apparently altruism has something to do with helping people. Not sure. Again, I wish you wouldn't have asked.
You should be in Mensa.
Let's move on to our strange law. In Spades, Indiana, it is illegal to open a can of food with your revolver. It's illegal there. It's just awesome everywhere. All right, that's your strange law. This has been your Scoop of the Day.
John and Heidi.
This portion of the John and Heidi Show is brought to you by Knowles Systems. If you have funds earning less than 6%, listen to this. Commercial mortgage bridge loans pay 6% to 8%. That might be just what you need. You're placed in first position on loans secured by high-quality commercial real estate like hotels, apartments, and office buildings. Your principal never fluctuates in value. You receive 6% per year paid monthly, and your principal is returned in full at the end of each cycle. You never pay commissions, management fees, or asset charges, and you can make these loans inside or outside of an IRA. Start earning 6%. Go to commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com right now. What are you waiting for? Go to commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com. Again, that's commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com.
John and Heidi.
Thank you so much for listening to the John and Heidi Show. This is a political year, and we've heard people talking about making America great again. We've got a guest today that's going to talk about how to make America great again by replacing income tax with import tariffs. We have Andrew Gause, monetary expert. Andrew, how are you, sir?
Oh, fabulous. And yourself?
Very good. It's always a fun time to chat with you. And every time we've talked, I've learned a lot, and I'm expecting to learn a lot again today. So as we've got the presidential elections going on, and we keep hearing about this Make America Great Again, you've kind of got a different idea on how to do that, don't you?
Well, I do. And, Donald Trump is the only candidate that's touched upon the subject, and that's the idea of import tariffs.
An import tariff, let's explain that so people that are listening that don't understand that, let's make sure they understand what an import tariff is.
Yeah, I've discussed it with so many politicians, they don't understand it. The reality is that for the first 150, 175 years of this country's existence, the majority of the revenue to the federal government was from tariffs, from imported goods. So essentially it was, the Coast Guard was the IRS. And you steamed your ship into port, and, here comes the Coast Guard. And they open up your stores and count everything and then submit you a bill. Here's your bill for taking advantage of the greatest marketplace in the world. The way the system works right now, Mitsubishi Corporation pays less in taxes in the United States, income taxes, than a typical working American.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? That seems ridiculous. So on top of not paying any tax on the income that they squeeze out of the U.S. economy, they bring their goods in without any tax whatsoever. So an import tariff says tax the goods, and a foreign income tax says tax the profit. Does it seem ridiculous or asinine that the American public foots the bill for the entire system while foreign corporations pay no income tax and no import tariff? No, not to me.
So now how would imposing a tariff on imported goods, how would that affect the American labor force? Would that be a good thing or would that be a bad thing?
Well, many say because the poor, or the lower income folks, spend the greater percentage of their money, it would be an unfair tax burden to them since so many get tax refunds through the income tax program. They get earned income credits and so forth. But I think the elimination of the income tax would be a boon to the U.S. economy in that no longer would businesses have to fill out tax returns. No longer would individuals have to fill out tax returns. All of that work would not be necessary, except for the state income taxes, which I imagine at some point will have to fall in line. From the federal government's point of view, they collected tariff on imported goods. So we imported $2 trillion worth of goods into the United States last year.
Wow.
And 100% tariff would be $2 trillion worth of income. The only difference would be it wouldn't come out of our production side. It would come out of our consumption side. So the working class would see, okay, anything you buy at Walmart just went up 100%.
So is that the amount that you're proposing? Because you'd mentioned 100% twice. So you're proposing that we would put a 100% markup on that? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, there's a tariff at the border. So before at Walmart any container can come in from China, 100% of the declared value has to be collected by the Coast Guard or the IRS of the seas as a tax. Okay, now you've brought your goods into the United States. Presumably, they would add that to the price, and so now the item at the store, when it's physically delivered to the consumer, costs twice as much. They've got to double the price, which means that maybe a widget manufacturer will set it down the street and make the goods that they're now importing. So, the idea of a stiff tariff says you get competition from American industry again.
I'm saying this is not a new idea. This is something we had done for many, many, many years. And are there other countries around the world right now that are doing this still?
Well, they do it to us. I think this is what Donald Trump means by the fair trade thing. So we let the Chinese, for example, dump their goods into the United States, but you can't go to China and buy American goods. You can buy, you can't buy anything else in the United States. But in China, American goods are very hard to come by because they're restricted as they enter the marketplace. I was speaking to a friend last week who's in Argentina. Now, they flood us with leather goods, no tariff, but yet he has blown an engine in his Dodge Durango, and he said, well, there's only 4 in, the whole country, and I can't get parts, and if I do, they cost 3 times as much here as they do there. Why? Well, because tariffs. So, the rest of the world is building their industry and their economy at our expense, and our leaders really don't have the courage to fight back and say, hey, well, I've seen a little bit of gumption out of the House and the President, but, the idea of calling China a currency manipulator should be well established. It shouldn't have to be debated. This is what they do. They devalue their currency so that their goods are cheaper than ours, and then manufacturers move or put out of business because they can't compete with the Chinese yuan and the Chinese labor and bypassing environmental regulations and so forth. So we can make up for all that with a stiff import tariff. The President's currently suggesting a $10 a barrel tax on oil. Everyone. So that would really further kill the domestic oil producers. However, a $20 tariff on imported oil would make U.S. oil $20 cheaper. And so then we'd be back to drilling. We'd be back to creating jobs. It's a simple formula. You say, you look at the American plan at the founding of this nation. It was a central bank owned by the government that generates a profit, and take that profit from the tariffs and the central bank revenues and reinvest them in internal improvements. So, that's how they built all the post roads and the canals in the eastern United States, with a combination of income from the bank and tariffs from the imports. Now we've given the central bank over to a group of private banks. Of course, they do pay us rent every year, but the profits that they generate are enormous. I mean, they're gigantic. The Federal Reserve and its constituent units take all of that money. We don't see any of that. And then we give all of our import partners free passes, both in income tax and in tariffs. So we really have no source of revenue. And that income tax for United States citizens, as well as the Social Security tax, which is used like an income tax, it's diverted into the income tax stream. It makes us pay 40 to 50% of our total income in one tax or another, and that's why we just can't get ahead as Americans.
Again, our guest today is Andy Gause, one of America's foremost experts on history of U.S. currency, and very knowledgeable in so many areas, and it's always fun to chat. Now, we were talking today about the plan to really make America great again by replacing income tax with import tariffs. One of the companies that you had mentioned was Walmart, so we'll use that as an example. What kind of thing would we see happen to big importers like Walmart if there were tariffs that were added to the price of their products? Would this be good for them, bad for them, good for the country, bad for the country? How do you see that?
If you weigh what you buy at Walmart or in other imported goods and say to yourself, okay, if that amount is now going to double, is it more or less than I'm currently paying in income tax? And more importantly, if in fact I can source this product domestically, then it might even be cheaper than the import, whereas it used to be more expensive. And so suddenly demand increases for domestically produced goods. Additionally, if I would traditionally buy something new from one of those buy a new foreign car every 2 years kind of guy, well, I'm going to pay a stiff tariff for that instead of buying a domestic car and fixing it when it breaks. So it may encourage, especially for those marginal folks who see it as a way to save money. If you use that system properly, you save money. But to somebody who doesn't care, who's paying $5,000 for a Louis Vuitton bag, or flying around in imported aircraft, or driving around in imported chauffeur-driven vehicles, I'm certain it's not going to matter to them. Of course, if it does, they have the same choice. They can find a domestically sourced product, which what it means is it'll concentrate production in the United States.
So this could actually help create jobs.
The magic word. What's been lacking for the last 2 decades that they've been selling us this free trade nonsense? Have we tried it? Okay, we tried it. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because our government is not tough enough to take on the foreign powers that say, oh, here's how we get around. We sell our goods in their country, and they, of course, play fair. When they go to sell their goods in our country, we won't play fair. The Japanese are notorious for this in their beef and rice, and it goes across. I have the best story I've ever heard has to do with our chicken producers. We take the chicken and we cut the feet off use them maybe as fertilizer. These are excess feed and beaks we don't care anything about. But in China, this is a delicacy. They'll do the opposite. They'll cut the feet off a chicken and throw the rest of the chicken away just to get those chicken feet. They make soup. They make delicacies with it. They have a real taste for it, more so than the rest of the bird. And so this means there's a heavy demand for chicken feet in China. No demand in the United States. Okay, free trade. How about we load a couple of containers with frozen chicken feet and send them to China, which we do. What do the Chinese do? Immediately, 130% tariff on imported poultry. How do you compete? The one thing that we might make cheaper than China, the one thing, and we send it, and they reject it with 130% tariff. So that's not free trade. It's not even fair trade. That's like a one-sided trade deal. They get to dump their stuff here tax-free. We can't. For all intents and purposes, sell there.
Again, our guest today, Andrew Gause. And Andrew, I could listen to you for hours and hours and hours because I find this very fascinating. And if listeners want to learn more, I wish we had more time. I know we don't. But if they want to learn more about what you're talking about, they can get a free CD that explains the U.S. monetary system and how to protect their wealth in today's uncertain economy. How do they go about getting a hold of that?
Well, first of all, they have to mention, of course, they heard on the John and Heidi Show, and call us, 800-468-2646. You're right. I have 3 audio CDs. The definition of money. What the heck is a dollar anyway? The Federal Reserve. How does it operate? What's it all about? And the third, protecting your wealth. That tells you how to convert your Federal Reserve money into what the Constitution defines as money. And you can get those easily. Just again, mention you heard it on the show and call 800-468-2646.
Andrew, thank you again for taking some time to chat. I'm sure I'll be reaching out again in the future. There's always things to talk about, and you've got the answers.
Thank you, my friend.
Again, Andrew Gause right there. He's one of America's foremost experts on the history of U.S. currency. Very knowledgeable man. If you'd like to get a copy of one of those CDs, I'll give you that number. I jotted it down when he gave it to us here. It's 800-468-2646. Make sure you tell him you heard it on the John and Heidi Show.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Keystone Treatment Center. Addiction is no laughing matter. Call Keystone Treatment Center toll-free at 1-844-204-1055.
Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
According to a new study, women with babies tend to forget things, and they call it momnesia.
Okay.
It's a real thing. So if you have a newborn and you're forgetting stuff, don't worry. You just have momnesia. There's probably an app for that, too. I don't know.
Okay.
Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
Ants can live up to 16 years.
Okay.
I don't know about uncles,
I think
but
we said
ants.
that, but...
I don't think so. Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
There are 20 matches in a standard pack.
Oh.
Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
Teen is a Scottish word meaning grief. I agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
Cadillac introduced cruise control in 1958.
Really?
I love cruise control. Fun fact for you, Heidi.
What's that, John?
And this one is my standout fun fact for the day. Chickens cannot swallow while they're upside down. Isn't that cool? I didn't know that.
Why would anybody need to know that?
I just think that's a cool thing to know.
First of all, who's hanging chickens upside
I
down
know.
to begin with? And then
Somebody
saying, hey,
doing studies.
let's give him a drink. He looks thirsty.
Oh, I can't swallow. Have you ever tried to drink while you're standing upside down?
I don't stand upside down.
While we were as a kid. When I was a kid, we would do this thing where we'd do a headstand and try to take a drink. Kids, I don't recommend it. It's kind of like waterboarding your brother, basically. That's kind of what that is. All right, a lot of fun facts for you there. Coming up, we got more fun stuff on the way on the John and Heidi Show.
John and Heidi.
This portion of the John and Heidi Show is brought to you by RadioReallyWorks.com. I know you're listening to a podcast, but did you know the John and Heidi Show is also a radio show? And for those of you who have businesses, you should consider using radio to advertise your business. We can even help you create some catchy little jingles or amazing radio ads that will help pull people in. Get all the details or just learn more at RadioReallyWorks.com. That's RadioReallyWorks.com.
John and Heidi.
Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show on a Monday. You know what's coming up later this week?
What's that?
St. Patrick's Day. Check it out. I'm ready. I got a lucky shirt. I've never had a lucky shirt before.
What day is it?
It's the 17th, so it's this Thursday.
Okay.
You making
I
a
better
note?
write. I'm making on my. It's not on my calendar.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Okay, yeah. The 17th is the day. Well, right now, let's talk about this. This is a really interesting...
That's exciting because that's the one day of the year I get to go and have a few cocktails.
Yeah, she has green beer for breakfast that day, pretty much. She might not be here that day. I'm not sure. Have you ever heard of the Dough Zone?
No?
Doctors have found a part of the brain that makes you stupid, and they call it the dough zone after TV's Homer Simpson. That's not very nice. The conclusion of researchers at Vanderbilt University who've identified an area of your brain in the frontal lobe where neurons send out alarm signals when you realize you've done something dumb. Mine is overused, I'm sure of it. Scientists report the discovery of this area is a very important discovery because it helps control activities as we make decisions. It corrects errors. It overrides habitual responses. The neuroscientists studied monkeys gazing at spots on a computer screen to figure out what goes on in our heads when we say, oops. They've nicknamed it the dough zone, again, after TV's Homer Simpson and his catchphrase, dough! And that's usually what he does when he does something stupid. So, I wonder, now that we know that it's there, I wonder if there's something we can do to affect that area of the brain to make it better so we quit doing things that are stupid.
Probably not.
Have you ever done something that while you're doing it, you realize this is a dumb idea and I'm halfway through it and why did I do this?
I'm sure I have. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
I'll tell you one that I shared with our son last week. And he laughed for about, we were driving, he laughed for about 10 miles because he thought it was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard. We were talking about the cigarette lighter in a car, and I had a friend that used a cigarette lighter to light a cigarette. This is like back in the 80s. And the thing was sitting there, and I said, is that still hot? And he said, I don't know. And I picked it up, and I touched it with my finger to find out if it was hot. By the way, it was hot. It was no longer red. It had cooled down for like a minute, but it was still hot enough to not feel good. Yeah. Oh! Coming up, would you like to supersize that? It's on the way.
This portion of the program is brought to you by RVWheeliter.com. If you want to buy or sell an RV, go to RVWheeliter.com. List your RV for free. Learn more at RVWheeliter.com.
Now, here's an interesting story, Heidi. Debbie Watts went into work one morning not feeling well. Didn't know what was going on exactly. She'd been feeling bad, every morning for a short while. Didn't know what the heck was going on. But this particular day, she went home with a newborn baby.
Oh, boy.
Debbie Watts works for McDonald's in England. She says she was unaware that she was even pregnant. She had been having stomach pains, felt this incredible urge to push. Within a matter of minutes, she gave birth to a 6-pound, 6-ounce baby girl in the restaurant's bathroom with the help of a coworker.
Oh, my
gosh. The little
gosh.
girl's name is Danielle. So how crazy is that?
You hear about that happening quite a bit.
I wonder if she got the rest of the day off.
As a woman who has
at
had
least.
2 children, I cannot. I don't know how that's even possible.
I really wonder if.
I definitely knew I was pregnant.
I hope she got the rest of the day off and didn't have to go back to work. Did you wash your hands?
Yeah.
Just gave birth in the bathroom. Yeah, that's crazy.
And I've been in most McDonald's bathrooms. That is not the place I'd want to lay on the floor.
I wouldn't want to give birth in any bathroom anywhere, but I'm just saying, I think, let's move on. Coming up, we're going to talk about daylight savings time. That happened over the weekend. We got a fun story to go with that. It's coming up in a bit.
John and Heidi.
Are you feeling groggy today? Maybe it's the fault of daylight savings time. According to the National Sleep Foundation, the loss of just 1 hour's sleep, like we all had this weekend, can make sleep-deprived people more accident-prone, including the risk of highway crashes. Daylight savings doesn't help, they say. Studies have found up to a 17% increase in fatal car crashes the next couple of days here. So drive carefully out there. The average adult needs about 8 hours of sleep every night, yet more than a third of Americans sleep fewer than 7 hours a night. The National Sleep Foundation reports lack of sleep interferes with the daily activities of about 35% of adults. Because it's not so easy to reset your internal clock, even those who get plenty of sleep may find themselves feeling disoriented, cranky, or groggy today. It's much like the case of jet lag. The rule of thumb is it'll take the body clock a couple of days for each hour of time change. So since we just lost an hour, it's going to take a day or two for us to all kind of be back into the swing of things. So be careful out there, Heidi. Dangerous day to be on the roads. Coming up, maybe we'll chat about our daughter's accident. That was an interesting story, and it just amazes me. It's coming up here in a bit. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show.
John and Heidi.
This portion of the John and Heidi Show is brought to you by Knowles Systems. If you have funds earning less than 6%, listen to this. Commercial mortgage bridge loans pay 6% to 8%. That might be just what you need. You're placed in first position on loans secured by high-quality commercial real estate like hotels, apartments, and office buildings. Your principal never fluctuates in value. You receive 6% per year paid monthly and your principal is returned in full at the end of each cycle. You never pay commissions, management fees, or asset charges, and you can make these loans inside or outside of an IRA. I'll give you a toll-free number to call, 888-547-8007. Start earning 6% now. Call 888-547-8007.
John and Heidi.
Bad money habits and how to break them. This is from Woman's Day. Some habits are good for you, like flossing and exercising and getting a lot of sleep. 8 hours is what they say. But the same thing over and over again can feel comfortable, even safe. But when habits sabotage your financial health, it's time to turn off the autopilot and start making some active decisions using your brain and make these decisions about your life and your money. Here are some things that you should think about, and today would be a great day to just re-examine these.
All
Are
right.
you contributing too little to your 401k? Many people don't put enough in. They say if you're only putting in 3 or 4%, you're way behind. 10% is the minimum that you're supposed to put in, according to this story from Women's Day. Next, keeping quiet at raise time. It says men are more likely to get raises. You know why?
Because they say something.
Because you're more likely to ask for them. So ladies, don't be shy. Say, hey, you know what? I really think I deserve a raise as well. Carrying a balance on credit cards. If you're doing this, this is a self-imposed tax. It's not a tax, but self-imposed fees. You're paying interest that you don't need to pay. And they say the average credit card balance in 2011 was $6,576. That's a lot. Pay those suckers off.
That was the average per person?
Yeah, average
Yowzers.
per card. Per card.
Yowzers.
Using too many credit cards is another thing that a lot of people are struggling with. When you spread out over multiple cards, it's tough to rein in the spending, so be aware of where your money is going. We have how many credit cards, Heidi?
0.
None, because we have awful credit. Oh, wait, no, because we made the decision.
We went through the Dave Ramsey
Yeah,
thing, and
we
ever
did.
since, that was years ago.
It
We
was.
haven't had a credit card since.
And here's the thing. At first, you're going to think, how can I possibly live without that? You know
You
what?
can live without it.
It's awesome. You're going to live way better than you ever lived
Yep.
before. So just get
That
rid
was
of those things.
7 years
I
ago
think
that
it's
we
closer
went
to
through
10.
that?
Yeah. Another thing they say is skimping on emergency savings. Don't do that. Make sure you have enough in case something comes up. Skipping disability insurance. These are very affordable things to have, and it's a way to be covered if something does happen. Saving for college over retirement. That's something that a lot of people do. They say, well, I want to put my kids through school, and then they'll save for college, but they don't save for retirement. That's important too, but make sure you save for
Yeah,
yourself
make sure you
and your
can
future.
take care of yourself.
No matter what you do, you will not get a scholarship for retirement.
Right.
If your kids do really well in school, they can get a scholarship for that. Make sure you save equally for retirement, at least equally. But this story says save more. Buying high and selling low. There are people who buy stocks when the market's doing well, and then the market starts getting bad, and they start selling. That's the wrong time to sell. And then the last thing on the list is letting your significant other handle all the money decisions. Oh man, I'm in trouble. You handle all of that. I don't even know what our checkbook looks like anymore. I've not done it for a long, long time.
That's okay. Only one of us should be worrying that much.
Anyway, these tips are all from Women's Day. Thanks for listening to The John and Heidi Show.
John and Heidi.
This portion of The John and Heidi Show is brought to you by The John and Heidi Show. That sounds kind of funny, but it's true. Go to your local radio station and ask them to start carrying The John and Heidi Show. Here's the best part. They can carry the show for free. They play a couple commercials, but it doesn't cost them anything every month. So if you know a radio station that could use a little bit of help, send them our way. Send them to johnandheidishow.com. Again, johnandheidishow.com. We would love to do a radio program in your community. Then you could listen to the podcast and listen to us on the radio.
John and Heidi.
All right, we got two things here. We got good news and we got more good news. So I'm going to read this first because we always try to wrap things up around here with some good news.
Yeah.
Going to read this story first, and I got to tell you a story that I think is just amazing. Other countries are lining up to welcome you. If you're disgruntled with America after the election, they're saying, come here, we want you. Because there's people saying, oh, if so-and-so wins, I'm moving. I'm leaving this country. Would you do that, Heidi, if somebody wins?
You know what? No, because I haven't done it over the last 7 years. I'm certainly not going to start now. And it's because I am a patriot. I'm a proud American, and no matter what, America is my home. Anybody
mine,
who
too.
is willing to leave their country
That's not very American.
in its time of need is not an American, and they should go.
There you go.
They
You
shouldn't
should-
be here.
Well, according to Mashable, Google reports that the search for move to Canada was the highest it's ever been after the Super Tuesday votes. At any point in Google's history, Canada has a very open immigration policy, and Cape Breton, an island in Nova Scotia, built an entire campaign off the fear that many Americans are having right now. Meanwhile, New Zealand developed an entire webpage to make leaving as easy as possible. So there's countries out there that are at least having fun with the fact that people in America are losing their mind over this election. And here's the thing that I would say. There's a big, long list of celebrities that say, well, if so-and-so is elected, I'm moving. I think we should hold them to that.
I would love to hold them to that.
They're trying to influence decisions based on, their quote-unquote celebrity. So if they want to influence
Go away.
decisions...
Good
then
riddance. The
you
ones
say
that
you're
are saying
leaving,
it,
you
I'll
should.
help you pack.
I just think that should be a new law. If I were president, I would enact that. All right, now to move on to something that is really, I think, interesting and good news as well. Now, first of all, how could you ever say my daughter was in a car accident as good news? But this last week, I felt so bad for you last week. Our son left for the Navy.
Oh,
you were
my
a basket
gosh.
case for that. You were literally on the phone. Our daughter called to say, hey, I was in a car accident. And then our son called to say, hey, I'm here at the Navy and I'm safe. And you're like juggling phone calls over there. So we went to see what happened because she was in a car accident at the grocery store parking lot. And there was just a little bump. And it was a listener that she bumped into. So, hey, thanks for listening. But this was the thing that was so adorable. I said, what were you doing at the grocery store? And she said,
what time was it?
10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever at night. What were you doing? She said, I stopped to get Mom some flowers.
So sweet.
Wasn't that nice?
She's my baby.
She stopped to get you some flowers because she knew you were having a tough day. Our son left for the Navy last Wednesday, and it's, you know what? We're finally to the point where she's not crying all day anyway, so that's kind of nice. But here was the coolest thing about this accident. Her car is made of plastic. Most cars are. So there was a little dent in her back bumper. And
It was a pretty good sized dent
but it
in
was,
her bumper.
just a little bump.
No damage at all to the other one, which is
No.
wonderful. I'm
So-
really happy to hear that.
Here was the crazy thing. Yesterday, Heidi drove my daughter's car to her. We dropped her off at work, and we drove her car there. And last night when I got home, I opened the garage door, and the dent was gone. I said, what happened? And she's like, I have no idea. The dent popped out on its own.
It was probably, she was sitting parked in front and the sun was shining right on it. I bet it just warmed it up enough that it just popped right back out.
All I know is I thought that was
There's
so cool.
no
You
dent
can't
at all.
even
You
tell.
can't even tell she had an accident.
So it was really, I thought that was
Yeah,
pretty
that's
darn
pretty cool.
So that is some darn good news right there. Time to say goodbye, Heidi.
Goodbye, Heidi.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the John and Heidi Show on a Monday.
Time now for the bonus break. Only available here on the John and Heidi Show podcast.
John and Heidi.
And your bonus break is brought to you by the good folks at Knowles Systems. And if you haven't heard of them, well, you need to listen up because I got to tell you all about this. If you have funds earning less than 6%, maybe you should check into a better system like Knowles Systems. They have commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com. If you've never heard of a commercial mortgage bridge loan, I'm going to tell you what this is. It's a loan paying 6% to 8%, and it could be just what you need. You're placed in the first position on loans secured by high-quality commercial real estate like hotels and apartments and office buildings. Your principal never fluctuates in value. You receive 6% per year paid monthly, and your principal is returned in full at the end of each cycle. You never pay commissions, management fees, or asset charges. You can make these loans inside or outside of an IRA. If you'd like more info on how you can start earning 6% or more right now, call 888-547-8007. I'll give you that number again in a second, but first, you might want to just check out the website if that's easier. commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com. Again, commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com or 888-547-8007.
John and Heidi.
As we take a look at our bonus break, here's something that I always wondered. How is it that camels can walk in sand without sinking in the sand? Because they're heavy animals.
Well, they're heavy, but it's not like they're in quicksand.
But I'm
It's
saying
just
any
sand.
sand, you push on sand, if it's something heavy, it'll sink down in the sand.
No.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked in sand? I mean,
Yes.
we walk in sand. We're heavy.
I understand that, and I sink down in the
You
sand.
do not sink down.
I'm not
in the
saying I
sand.
sink up to my knees, but I'm saying it can be difficult when walking in sand. Well, here's why camels don't have a problem. They have very broad, flat, leathery pads with 2 toes on each foot. When the camel places its foot on the ground, the pads spread, preventing the foot from sinking into the sand. So when camels walk, the camel moves both feet on one side, then both feet on the other side. The gait suggests the rolling motion of a boat and explains the camel's ship of the desert nickname. So that's why they call him that. I've never heard him call him that.
So next time somebody goes dissing camel toes, you say, hey.
Yeah, that's what keeps them
hey.
from sinking in the sand. You just stop it. For those of you about to embark on a career in crime, take a tip from a woman in Edmonton. While pulling off her latest heist, the female thief was too busy to notice one little detail: the gas gauge on the stolen truck she was driving.
Oh, boy.
As police gave chase, they noticed she was slowing down and slowing more, and then jumped from the car to take off running. However, it turns out the truck had run dry and coasted to a stop, so it made it a whole lot easier to catch her. She stole a vehicle that had no gas. There are a lot of places that are not the best choice to bring your stash of pot, but the one that takes the cake, in St. Paul, Minnesota, an unnamed man there had been assigned to work out his community service sentence by cleaning up the grounds and preparing for the next day's graduation at the St. Paul Police Academy, and it was for their dogs training school. Yeah, drug dogs. So this guy brought a bunch of drugs to a drug training sniffing dog school.
Stupid.
He had 6 small bags of marijuana. He was sniffed out by the senior canine instructor, Buster, and now the community service turned into, he got a nice little stay. in
Yeah,
the
he
old
did.
Prison cell.
That's nice.
And our final story, Craig Glacier approached a 24-year-old man and kicked him and grabbed his bag. Yeah, crime in progress. Glacier apparently spent some time planning the caper. He had his faithful, loyal accomplice, Nicholas Sade, waiting in a vehicle. Sade, the wheelman, took his job seriously. Not only was there to provide timely means of escape, but he also used the vehicle directly in the commission of the crime, because when the victim attempted to skedaddle, Sade drove up on the pavement to block the path to escape. With a smirk undoubtedly on his face, Glacier picked up his booty, got in the car, and nodded for Sade to burn rubber and get the heck out of there, quick and clean, except for they failed to notice that there was a police helicopter hovering over them the entire time, and they filmed the entire assault. So Glacier got 2 years, Sade got 1 year. So these guys were not the brightest boys, apparently. Can I share one last thing before we're done here?
Sure.
Because I have these fun facts, and I don't know how many to get each day. Every day I get way more than I need. And these are some that I don't want to just throw them away. This is good stuff. Did you know that 200 million M&Ms are sold every day in the U.S. alone?
I did not.
200 million M&Ms.
I love M&Ms.
Who was the first company to use a radio jingle? I didn't even know these guys used radio.
I don't know.
A long time ago. Wheaties.
Oh.
Wheaties was the first company to use a jingle in their radio ads. Did you know that William Howard Taft was the first president to own a car?
I did not.
And the last but not least fun fact, Uncle Tom's Cabin was the first novel to sell more than 1 million copies.
Lovely.
There you go. A couple of fun facts for you. And our bonus break brought to you by Knowles Systems. If you've got funds earning less than 6%, check out a commercial mortgage bridge loan. They earn 6 to 8%, could be just what you need. All of the details are available right now at commercialmortgagebridgeloans.com. Make sure you, in the little drop-down, tell them that you heard it on the John and Heidi Show.